Now, whilst the nuclear standoff between Iran and Western powers, and indeed the consequent sanctions, are a big part of the presidential election campaign here, the country's involvement in Syria and with Hezbollah is not an issue. It's an accepted fact. But tonight, Iran has finally been invited to proposed Syrian peace talks in Geneva. At the same time, Iran's deputy foreign minister has tonight blamed the West for stoking violence in Syria, sending weapons, as he put it, despite the active presence of terrorist groups. But as I've discovered whilst covering the election here, Iran's involvement in both Syria and with Hezbollah has as much to do with geopolitics as it does with religion. Hezbollah flags fluttering in a final rally in the election campaign here in Iran. I asked the oldest flag carrier whether the election outcome would change Iran's view of Hezbollah and Syria. It depends on the politicians, he said. It's clear even from this rally that Assad's Syria and Hezbollah are structural to Iran's maintenance of power in this region. Beyond the rally, murals depict Iran's sense of protecting its inheritance and territorial integrity. Ringed around by Afghanistan, Iraq, Turkey and Russia, Iran's proud flags on every city bridge speak of defiance of an enemy defined ever since the Islamic Revolution here 30 years ago as America. Iran's support for Assad's Syria is more about geopolitics than about the mosque. Across Tehran today, they celebrated the festival of the third Imam, Hussein. Yet beneath the tinselled decorations as they prayed, it is clear that the Shia faith is not the decider, even though Assad's Alawites are a Shia sect. From Iran's perspective, the war in Syria is not about Islam, but about Iran's wider 30-year struggle with America and the West. Outside, the congregation thronged for the delivery of red symbolic flags from the Shia city of Karbala, just across the border in Iraq, a country still riven by the consequences of an American-led war. So that when you move amongst people here in Tehran, they talk not of Islamic conflicts between Shia and Sunni Muslims, but of war with us, the Western powers, led by America.
The rebels are terrorists backed by the Western countries, Europe and America.
100% I support Bashar al-Assad. We are supporters of peace. We hate war because we've experienced it. America and England are supporting the terrorists.
Down the street from the mosque, a vast poster depicts Barack Obama and Shemri, the man who murdered Shia Islam's third Imam, whose festival it is today. It may be hard for us to understand, but here they are both depicted as a satanic enemy. Well, we're joined now by Professor Saad Mohammed Marandi, a leading political analyst from Tehran University. Professor Marandi, let's just first lay the groundwork. From an Iranian perspective, is there a Sunni-Shia conflict now in full rage across the battlefields of Syria?
I think the Iranians believe that the Saudis and other forces in the region want that to be the case. But it's basically a takfiri conflict, in other words, a radical ideology that comes from Saudi Arabia and other Arab oil-rich countries in the Persian Gulf that support this ideology. It is very hostile towards other religions, other sects, but I don't think that the Iranians believe that mainstream Sunnis follow such an ideology at all.
In my own piece just now, all the people I spoke to, and many people that we haven't heard from in the air, but who I've spoken to, have said, this isn't about Sunni Shia, it's about America and the West. Basically, they're fueling the rebels, they want to drive Assad out, and we'll be next.
Yes, I think the belief is that the United States, alongside the Saudis and the Qataris, have been funding the rebels, and that the United States and the Europeans have closed their eyes to Saudi and Qatari funding of Al-Qaeda-like groups in Syria. For 2 years, the Iranians have been saying that Jabhat al-Nusra and other groups, they are affiliated to Al-Qaeda, and Western governments have been denying that, the opposition has been denying that, but as each day goes by, it becomes more clear that that's the case.
I can hear the phone ringing now with the Americans on the line, the British too, and saying, hang on a minute, Iran is funding Hezbollah, which is essentially a Shia movement. It's funding an Alawite Shia sect. You're driving it too.
Well, no, the Alawites are not Shias. And,
well, they're that way inclined.
Well, for example, my own mother-in-law, she's Syrian. She comes from a very large Sunni family, and they're very much against the militant opposition. When you go to Damascus, for example, the mood is absolutely definitely not pro-militant. I think the point is that what the Iranians have been saying all along is that the Annan plan should have been pursued.
But then what do you say to those people who say, hang on a minute, Iran is actually helping Assad kill his own people?
I think what the Iranians are saying is that it's a lot more complicated than that, and that what is really happening is that international law has been violated for 2 years. From Turkey, Lebanon, arms have been being brought into Syria. Radical groups are being trained. You have a situation much worse than Afghanistan in the 1980s, and we saw what happened in New York on September the 11th, and in London as well later on. Right now, what the Saudis and the Qataris are doing, with the help of other countries, is they're creating a radical Islam across the board in the region, and the blowback will obviously be something that everyone will have to deal with.